Super bright, but I don't really give a shit. You're not here to see me. I'm here to talk and stay warm. Welcome. If you're watching this, um, hope all's well. A topic that has penetrated my mind this morning is um, how to kind of claim your own individuality in this sort of world and kind of weird momentum we find ourselves in. Um, I was thinking about how when I first became much more active amongst society and culture is during the pandemic. So 6 years ago now, 2020. Um, I was in high school and I was exploring. I was just beginning high school, right? And so I got into certain little niches, and I had my friends, and we all kind of just did our thing, but what I was watching and consuming and what was popularized back then, um, I think really, really infiltrated um, my mind, but just minds in general. This sort of notion that a lot of influencers, I think, have then or created then and now have sort of like made a smaller online business through this thing, which is um, sort of like, I don't know the best way to word it, but um, saying in the context of their videos and what they post online and social media, their their setup of their content usually stems around like why you need to improve, um, or like critiquing other people who need to improve, or sort of selling you something to improve your situation, or convincing you of a way of life to improve your life, like convincing you that this is the set terms in which your life is defined by, and then providing a sort of crash course on how to navigate that certain mindset. Um, and that's, I think we're seeing the ripple effects of that now, um, throughout these last years. And uh, for me, it was, these last 6 years have been, I mean, obviously the most important years of my life. I would say now is the most important time of my life right now in this moment. But the last 6 years have been a very long journey of sort of escaping um, the self administration network of social media influencers, where they're telling you that you're not something, and then wanting you to do, you know, all these things, and they want to convince you of these ideas that make you act within their parameter or their within their perimeter. Um, and I think that's I think what that is a natural occurrence, but it sort of, I think what's happening past like that, being born, that being created, is a version of that where people are providing ways of life, um, but they're not really projecting anything onto you. It's more or less just like, hey, come to this experience and I'll be your experience. You know what I mean? I'll be your friend with the experience. And so, it takes a more tribal role when you have people just kind of inviting you, even if it is for monetary reasons, like that you paid something, and now you can go along on this trip with them. That's sort of the new thing I see happening, where you can sort of directly buy into the access point of sort of information of the way of life. Before, it was more of like a self-centered gatekeeping of that improvement, and it was always built towards um, the notion of doing a lot of homework, going through all these hoops to get to this point where you can eventually go to that experience and experience it with these other types of people. Not to go too deep into that and what I'm trying to convey and explain, it took some, personal work and some more digging informationally for myself the past 6 years to sort of escape that perimeter that we were all sort of like pushed into due to the pandemic. Because, you know, I don't think the social media algorithms were as strong or knew the individuals who were interacting with them as much. I think technology on a lot of different levels has improved and greatly impacted our psyche and the potency of what we see online. Um, During these last 6 years, getting out of that sort of perimeter, um, I had to meet people who I think also realized this sort of thing that I just explained. But what I think was lacking in our experiences when we were trying to kind of escape these perimeters was the sort of directiveness we need to give ourselves, the meaning we needed to give ourselves towards our lives, instead of chasing this high on top of highs on top of highs every time we interact. I didn't find that, and I don't know if I still have. I found moments of it, but here I am, well, kind of, excuse me. Here I am alone trying to convey. Excuse me. Oh my god, alone trying to convey this message, because it's something I've just been working on and through all my art and whatnot. I notice something else being born from these last 6 years, which I think is, I mean, it seems so obvious to me, but I don't think it is, because it's a transitional phase of understanding this. What AI in the quantity of videos and information and stimulation the screen provides nowadays, it does not matter that we can recognize like all the bullshit. Like, we can see it all and watch all the news networks and all those algorithms and social media platforms and see the shit that's just AI generated or slop or just people going along and falling in line. We can recognize this, but I think we're at a point that it doesn't matter that we can recognize the bullshit, the obvious fake shit. We're at a point now where we cannot even begin to understand what's true. So we're in this gray area of nothing being true and everything being true at the same time. there's these belief systems that AI can, um, it's like the sum of human information that can sort of be mirrored back to you, but the individual, has to seek out the information. And when you can choose to seek out selective information that resides in you, you immediately build a sort of bias towards something. And this unbiased perspective that I don't think much people have at all is the thing that I think is necessary for what we're experiencing. People are still so caught up in terms of politics and figures. Um, I immediately see this notion when you bring up politics to anyone or anything. It immediately goes to the surface level, isolated point of fuck that side, fuck this side, fuck all sides, fuck him, fuck her. I just want to live. It quickly becomes that because it's much easier to just identify with the notion or the wave or the ripple of the collective belief of the world as we know it. But to truly sit there and just observe and to sort of find a consensus behind it all, I think is much more time consuming, and you become much more valuable to yourself and to those who are interested in seeking, rather than those who are interested in just consuming and being told, and being provided a prepackaged sort of deal of handing you your fear, handing you your hatred, and you don't have to discover who you hate. You're just being told to hate someone, to hate a crowd. Um, and I think what really bothers me, surviving in it and living in it and trying to find a way of life to provide for myself, has been the most like mind-boggling thing because I've worked, a few jobs, and I've made decent money, but I'm doing the job and I'm like, what the fuck? Like this is not my. Nah, there's no way I can do this for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So I think due to like the perimeters of the financial trap where you're born into, which is that's an objective truth. And if you don't like the way I phrase it as a financial trap, you're content on making, a good life for yourself inside it. I can't blame you. That's, I think, what we're all trying to do. But to simply avoid certain areas of these kind of topics, um, it's a necessary evil because I myself am like holding up one end of a topic that I dislike. You know what I mean? And it's you kind of need that teeter totter, the weeble wobble, the balancing act of that relationship. And it's in this world you can have completely isolated points of view who don't even have to hold up the certain ends of certain worlds, certain realities for people. But I think due to like the 24/7 kind of news cycle, or 25/8, if you want to be honest, it's fucking just, you can access and, bad news, good news, this news, that news, at rates to just confirm your own bias and to confirm your own stereotypes and to confirm your own fears and hate. And in that sense, how do I say this? Hmm. This is I don't know where to go with this. Right? I do, but I don't know how to phrase it. But when you have the sense of hate and fear in yourself, but you're still seeking it, that's what controls you. That's what has you living and moving at times. And it's not always about the good, the bad, or it's not always about the good and the moments of like peace and just sitting there. It's these moments in between where you're acting and not acting in certain situations in your day-to-day life, where you're contemplating the action you have to take, and you're contemplating towards the negative outcome more than the positive outcome, um, or the beneficial outcome. And so you sort of hold up the opposite of what you want to happen. And that's what you talk about to people usually. That's usually what the contents of conversation ends up being amongst most places. Um, why they hate their job, why they hate this, why they hate that. Oh, did you see this? I hate this. Oh, did you see that? Yeah, fuck that. Um, so the meat and potatoes of your life becomes your fear and hatred. And what is a world or what is a society of people who have removed their fear and hatred and have completely isolated their point of view towards, um, I don't know if process is the right word, but like a good life, whatever they mean by that. You have very conflicting worldviews, and the things separating them are screens and you know language. The language that holds up the room in your parents' house, the language that holds up the room with yourself, the screens that hold up the people's minds all day. Um, the language that resides in bars that makes up the contents of the room. And I'm gonna hit this. I'm gonna have to charge this. But when you have language truly dictating the environment, and it's not, you know, a visual kind of ecstatic carnival, you become much more tribalized, and you find the community when language dictates rather than the vision dictates. But the actual language of sound and hearing, and a person sitting in front of you or a group of people, um, that controls the content of your environment. But when it can be replaced constantly by images and things you have to read rather than hear, big distinction. Hearing and reading, or looking and reading, these are big distinctions. Because when you look at the individual point of the axis of screens, you realize you're seeing images and words, and you're looking before you're reading. Because why you're looking before you're reading is because it's a thing to look through. The screen can show you anything. It can show you a picture with no words. It can show you a video with no words. Um, or it can show you words, and it can make you read, or it can make you listen to words. It's a very abstract tool. Um, but that relationship with having to go through the screen to read or look or to see or to build some sort of spiritual sense that I think we all have. Um, the screen becomes the dictator of the room rather than the words that make up the room, the language that makes up the room. Because people are going towards the screen to get to a word or to get to an image before they're getting to a word or image before the screen. And you genuinely might have the belief that that's not a big thing, but it's the most detrimental thing I've come to realize or come to my own belief that I'm just like, what the fuck? And these sorts of, how do I say it, people who base their existences off of the fear and hatred I was just talking about, with these screens having access to their fear and hatred at any given time, build like straight up walls and castles of mental and the imaginative structures of their fear and hatred, out of the fear and hate, out of the fear and hatred stems those walls and castles, or whatever you want to call them, the fence, right? It creates those things. And that's when you have the ego trap of being individual and separate from everyone. Because let's say you have two groups who both have that belief, they're the same thing, but they reside in a different mental structure. That is the sort of that's the sort of dissolving nature to our current world and current reality. And those two sorts of groups I was trying to get you to imagine. Imagine that they are living or experiencing their life through the screen first, rather than the word first. It's something similar to like Christians worshiping the Bible, but not the words from the Bible. You know what I mean? So where does this lead us? Probably more confusion, more coffee, more drugs and words and substances. I think it also leads us to these kinds of moments where there is no audience. Not yet, of course, but there will be an audience one day, rather. A little synchronistic moment. Plane going by as I say that. Um, but the audience is there and always there. Certain people in the 60s, 70s, and 80s realized this. Um, they realized that their image would probably just float along the electrical circuits for existence. That's a rather fascinating concept because, if you want to get a little tinfoil hat, I think what the screens can do is a sort of time travel act. Um, it will probably get much more realistic due to AI, but having the ability to go back to 1967 and watch something that was made then is a rather beautiful thing. That's my cue.